What would you do if you had to protect your child? This was the question that haunted me during the summer of 2022. My daughter Jazz and I decided to embark on a weekend camping trip for some bonding time. We set out to the Blue Mountains in Washington State, a place we had visited several times before. It was a familiar spot, one that held cherished memories. This trip was meant to be a 3-day adventure, filled with hiking, campfires, and the tranquility of nature. Upon arriving, we trekked about a mile into the wilderness and found a beautiful lake, perfect for setting up our camp. The air was crisp and the scenery breathtaking. As the evening settled in, we set up our tent, gathered firewood, and prepared a meal over the campfire. The sounds of the nocturnal wilderness surrounded us, creating a serene atmosphere. We enjoyed our dinner and decided to turn in early to make the most of the next day's activities. The first night passed uneventfully. The next morning, we woke up early, energized, and eager to explore. We set off on a hike, aiming to capture the natural beauty of the area in photographs. About 3 hours into our hike, we encountered an unusual, foul smell. It was an overpowering stench, akin to rotting garbage or a wet dog. Puzzled, we looked around but found nothing that could be the source. Despite the smell, we continued our hike. Soon, we came across an odd sight. A series of rock formations, with rocks stacked one on top of another in a straight line. It seemed strange but not alarming, so we pressed on. However, as we found more of these rock stacks, the unsettling smell persisted, growing stronger with each step. As the daylight began to fade, we decided to head back to our campsite, still puzzled by the smell and the rock formations. Back at camp, we started preparing dinner. As we cooked, we heard a rustling noise about 50 yards away. The sound grew louder, as if something large was moving towards us. Jazz, visibly frightened, asked, "Dad, what's going on?" My protective instincts kicked in, and I told her to get behind me. I grabbed my pistol and aimed it in the direction of the noise, my heart pounding in my chest. Suddenly, everything went silent. The abrupt quiet was almost more unnerving than the noise. Trying to lighten the mood and ease Jazz's fear, I made a few jokes, though I could tell she was still scared. Truthfully, I was too. We quickly ate our dinner and retreated to the tent, hoping for a peaceful night. As we settled in, we began to hear what sounded like rain hitting the tent. Confused, I mentioned to Jazz that the forecast had predicted clear skies. She confirmed that it wasn't supposed to rain. Then, we heard a loud crash, the likes of which I had never heard before. The putrid smell from earlier filled the tent. We heard a series of grunting noises, followed by a deep, guttural roar. It was the loudest, most terrifying sound I had ever heard. It felt like the roar of a wild beast, a sound filled with menace and power. In that moment, I was convinced we were in serious danger. Clutching my pistol, I steeled myself for whatever might come through the tent. I was determined to protect my daughter, no matter what. We sat there, paralyzed with fear, as the noises continued for what felt like an eternity, though it was probably about 15 minutes. We knew there was no way we could make it back to the car in the dark, with whatever was out there potentially lurking in the shadows. That night, sleep was impossible. We lay awake, every sound amplified by our fear, every minute stretching into an eternity. When dawn finally broke, we still didn't dare open the tent for a while. It was 7:32 a.m. I remember the time precisely, as it felt like a pivotal moment in my life. Summoning all my courage, I unzipped the tent. The sight outside was shocking. Our camp looked like it had been hit by a tornado. Items were strewn everywhere, and the ground was littered with rocks. My immediate concern was the large rock that had hit our tent. It was about 3 to 4 inches in diameter, and there were several others scattered around. Shaken, we packed up our belongings as quickly as possible. The entire time, Jazz and I were on edge, glancing around nervously. The walk back to the car was a blur of speed walking and half jogging, our senses on high alert. We didn't stop until we reached the car, at which point we drove off as quickly as we could, eager to put distance between us and whatever had disturbed our camp. We headed to a nearby town and stopped at a gas station. The clerk noticed our disheveled appearance and the anxious expressions on our faces. "Did you go camping around here?" he asked. When I confirmed, he mentioned, almost casually, "You know this is Bigfoot country, right?" I had heard stories and legends about Bigfoot, but I had never given them much thought. Yet, the clerk's words resonated with our experience. The strange rock formations, the foul smell, the mysterious noises, and the terrifying roar. All of it matched the descriptions others had reported in alleged Bigfoot encounters. While I can't say for certain what we encountered, the evidence pointed towards something extraordinary. Needless to say, We haven't returned to the Blue Mountains since that day. The experience left us both shaken and filled with questions. Was it really Bigfoot? Or was it something else entirely? Whatever it was, that trip remains one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. It's a story, Jazz, and I will never forget, and one that serves as a reminder of the mysteries that still lurk in the wilderness.